Look at that. It's not just, the XRP ETFs for XRP. There's the Clarity Act likely passing. Wall Street banks and Fortune 500 firms will finally have the green light to drive into digital assets. This is 7 trillion potential. I feel like this is going to be a lower number than 7 trillion, but I like to dream. And this would be a very big number and lots of money coming into XRP, right? So we are not that far off from the bull run of the XRP. Basically, I call it the institutional bull run, guys, that I have been waiting for. So I would be definitely very excited for that.
Talk about this, a new article we're going to go over. Plus I have some other Ripple and XRP news, guys. Let's start here. Obviously, we got to start here. Trillions could flow into crypto. We know it's coming. There's over $7 trillion sitting on the sideline, waiting to go into speculative assets, waiting for this really to pop off. Listen closely.
Yeah, we do believe the bill will be passed within the next 60 days. And this is further clarification. The Genius Act gave us clarity on stablecoins. This new bill will give us clarity on much more within the general world of crypto. And again, provides the rules that the traditional finance industry, banks, insurance companies, credit card companies, as well as the Fortune 500 generally, need to know that they're able to engage in this marketplace. They know what they're allowed to do, how they're allowed to do it, how they have to disclose it and report it, and pay taxes on it. And this is going to unleash the burdens that have kept everybody out of the marketplace. The result of all this, Talia, you're going to see hundreds of millions, probably hundreds of billions of dollars, perhaps even trillions of dollars flowing into Bitcoin and other digital assets. And since all of these coins operate on a supply-demand issue, just like any other asset, we're anticipating this is going to be the beginning of a major source of inflows and price increases over the next several years.
This is the beginning of major price increases and inflows into the crypto market over the next few years. So you hear like Raoul Pal saying we're going to 100 trillion over the next, 8 to 10 years. This is where the money is going to come.
So yeah, I was calling for institutional pumps that are gonna outgo, even if it's 7 trillion, not 100% of that 7 trillion will flow into any one asset. That what I was saying, it could be only like 200 billion. People are saying 7 trillion, but that is all the companies, right? And I feel like only a small amount of this money will go into crypto. And it will maybe, in my opinion, be only like 30 billion at start, maybe 20 billion. But this is still a very big amount of money coming into crypto that will potentially pump the markets. That along with ETFs, that along with retail, this is just on top. The markets right now are still looking great. It's just that, September and August are not really huge events. At least historically, that's not when they have major pumps. On Sundays and weekends, yeah, that's when crypto really dies down and doesn't do anything. But October is when I'm really excited because that is when also this Clarity bill is coming out.
Now, I've shown you this before in live streams and in a few of my videos, but I want to just hammer this home to you. This is just in the United States, not using the world here. Just in the US, how much money could flow into the crypto market. This is how much is available to flow into the crypto market if they choose to do that. Insurance companies, 9 trillion. Hedge funds, 4.74 trillion. Pension funds, this is the big one, $43.4 trillion in pension funds. Now, we look at President Trump signing an executive order allowing 401ks and IRAs to enter the crypto space. You start to imagine that there's going to be a lot of people who are interested in moving their retirement funds, some of it, into the crypto market.
I feel like it's going to be easier to buy with XRP ETFs. That's the main thing with retirement funds. A lot of older generation will find it easier to buy crypto because it's very hard. Imagine buying XRP 4 years ago was almost impossible, guys. It was almost impossible to buy XRP. It's going to get much easier in the next few years.
Imagine 10 or 20% of this value going into the crypto market. That's what we're talking about here. It could be 5 trillion, it could be $10 trillion. Brokerage firms, 35 trillion. You have some of the biggest brokerage firms in the world. They have a lot of money under management. Their customers obviously have kids, right? Or some of them are even young millionaires or billionaires. So these people are going to want to get into the crypto market, and
a lot of money will get turned from basically from the older generation into the newer generation. That's the most important thing I'm seeing right now. Lots of that money will change.
to have a lot of money to do that. Also looking at endowment funds, these are all schools and universities, 400 billion. Banks have 27 trillion just hanging out and chilling. Family offices have 1.8 trillion. And sovereign wealth funds, I believe it's like 13.9 trillion, but this is more global. This is everything. This is global estimates here of how much money can enter the space. Look at this, brokerage firms, $145 trillion. You're telling me that the crypto market isn't gonna go any higher than this? What? Let me just show you something else here. Oh wait, I was gonna show you like what could it do to XRP's price. Let me just show you this real quick. All right, so I ran these numbers a while ago. If we took 1% of the flows above 3% or 5%, this is US, this is global, how much money we're talking about could come into, let's say, XRP, right? If we got 1% of all this money, 3% of all this money, 5% of all this money, this is where XRP's price would go. This is with no market cap multiple.
But the issue here, this math is wrong in my opinion. Why is this wrong? For a very reason, because 7 trillion could be coming up to 7 trillion, first of all. Assuming 100 billion total XRP in supply, numbers surrounded for variability. Anyway, assuming 1% of US goes into XRP, this is a very unlikely amount because it's going to go, that 7 trillion is going to be spread out across the whole market. You know, people won't only buy XRP, they will buy other coins as well. So yeah, if 7 trillion, like 1% global, you know, we see 65 per XRP, you know, even if 0.5 goes into that, that would be $6 per XRP, which is very fair to the estimations. Is what people have been calling for in 2026, which is not that crazy. It's basically a double, right? But we don't know what will happen. So just keep in mind, guys, that there is a lot of good news still coming other than the XRP retirement funds and all of that people have been waiting for. So you can see here 60 trillion cap, 606 per XRP, a 50x multiplier. Now this is going to be very hard to hit because you also have outflows. You have people selling their own XRP.
I'm not going to spend very much time on this because, you know, let's get there first and then we'll celebrate all of this. But that's the information. That's the numbers. If you want to pause the screen and go over, this is the US 1%, 3%, 5%. This is global 1%, 3%, 5% of all the money above. And here are the multipliers. All right, here is digital asset investor. This is what we've been waiting for. New money is flowing in now. We're at 4.11 trillion in crypto. XRP has done a 400.
So yeah, getting to 10 trillion for crypto will not be that hard, especially if XRP did over 500%, guys. This is even before the ETFs.
And 75% gain this year, crushing Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Without new money, what happens next will be epic. All right, and then it says Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent claims that the stablecoin market could grow into 3.7 trillion by the end of the decade. So this is just for
like stablecoins. That is why XRP bought the $200 million rail deal. The $200 million rail deal is what people have been waiting for. You know, and once we got it, now XRP owns 10% of the market share of business-to-business stablecoin payments. It's a very big market, at least in the future, and XRP will now own a majority of that market share, or at least a very big portion of it.
4 years and 5 months away. End of the decade. I know when I say it like
so, yeah,
that, I'm like, where
exactly
did the last 5 years go? Holy smokes. If they believe that the stablecoin market, that's about 250 billion today, is going to, you know, 13x, 14x in the next 5 years, what do you think the rest of the crypto market's going to do? If you need to have the rest of the crypto market supporting all of this additional, you know, stablecoins, so that this crypto market would probably do something similar, which would bring us to, you know, 80 trillion, $100 trillion market. That's pretty cool. All right, and you start to wonder, what are BlackRock, Vanguard, Fidelity, UBS, State Street, Global Advisors, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Chase, Credit Agricole, Alliance, Capital Group, Goldman Sachs, BNY Mellon, Amundi, and PIMCO. These people are sitting on $40 trillion. When does this money start entering the space? Has it already started to enter the space? This is exciting stuff. I'm telling you. All right, and here is the article that Digital Assets Daily posted. Swift features Ripple and Stellar as banking disruptors. Let's go ahead and just take a look at what this is. This is August 16th, so I think this is today's date. This will come out on the 17th, yes. So hot off the press, guys. Crypto researcher Smoke. I wonder if Times Tabloid like has a deal with Smoke, because they mention him all the time. Whoa. Crypto.
So guys, just if you guys didn't know, there is a new XRP leak, or a researcher basically doing all these predictions for XRP. And from one thing he made an announcement, it actually came out true, which is a very, very important thing here is he knows a lot about XRP. He knows what has been happening, and he also said he's been in XRP since 2016, since XRP hit 10 cents, and he's still been in it, right? The current state of competition in the cross-border payment sector. So this is where XRP has its own competition.
Researcher Smoke has shared images from a Swift branded presentation featuring Ripple and Stellar during a discussion of replacing traditional correspondent banking. These slides outline the current state of the competition in cross-border payment sector and the requirements for any system aiming to disrupt the traditional correspondent banking model. Content of the slides. The presentation begins by referencing the concept of disruptive innovation attributed to the renowned Harvard Business School professor Clayton Christensen. It highlights that technology acts as an enabler, but a new business model is the key driver of meaningful change. Examples include industries disrupted by companies that do not own the assets traditionally associated with their sector. The slides then address correspondent banking directly, stating that for any alternative to disrupt the model, it must achieve global reach across all countries and all currencies, provide a viable nostro vostro account alternative for settlement, gain regulatory support from authorities familiar with existing systems, justify implementation costs through measurable savings, and deliver superior services to customers. Now, this is a very important paragraph here. Let's just go through this one by one. Basically, all countries and all currencies. Right now, Ripple covers 90% of the FX market, and they have almost every currency already on the XRP ledger.
This is why XRP is number one, is because they started working very early. Like, what, 2016? The same thing they're doing right now with RWA, real world assets, and the same thing they are doing right now with everything else. They're doing the same thing with the partnerships for business to business stablecoins. This is what I've been telling you guys when watching the news every single day. It really gives you a lot of perspective on what's happening in the current economy.
World, Europe, the United States, Mexico, Canada, they're everywhere. They want to cover the entire world and all the currencies. Now, let's take this a step further. A viable nostro vostro account alternative. We know by using on-demand liquidity, you can pretty much get rid of nostro vostro accounts. The reason this is going to be valuable, banks can take money that's been sitting dormant for so many years, right? This is probably anywhere from 15 to $25 trillion globally. I've seen the number vary. And they're going to be able to take this money back and put this money to good use inside of the bank. Now, this could be loaned to people, right? This could be new businesses. This could be supporting existing businesses. This could be people building new homes or whatever it is, right? You can put that money back to good use. You don't need it locked up around the world anymore.
I feel like XRP is reinvesting also a lot of this money into other businesses. Like, a lot of this money we have right now, they're going to reinvest that into whatever they can. And they're already generating money. Didn't they just say that since 2024, they are finally profitable? And that's before the lawsuit even ended. So yeah, they are getting paid for that. It's not just XRP. They don't need to sell the XRP tokens because of the lawsuit, which in my opinion, actually really boosted the prices as well.
This could be beneficial to any country, bringing that money back and putting it to good use for its citizens. Gain regulatory support from authorities familiar with existing systems. Now, this is something that speaks volumes, right? We've seen Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, and the team in meetings with some of the biggest central bankers and power players in the banking system in the world. You can't ignore the IMF and the BIS and the World Economic Forum and Monetary Authority of Singapore and the Central Bank of Indonesia, all of these different places that Ripple has worked closely side by side with these countries. When you talk about a global currency, right, taking over everything, getting the nod and the okay from these, people who actually control these systems, this is what we're talking about here. I don't see any other cryptocurrency outside of XLM even come close to some of the meetings that Ripple.
So the thing is, there are now projects which I don't want to mention on this channel, that are trying to get up to Ripple's market share. It's going to be a problem. They will need at least a few years, in my opinion, to even catch up to the type of partnerships Ripple has. because Ripple has right now been getting all of the partnerships that we have been waiting for. Like literally like 90% of the most important partnerships, Ripple has it. So yeah, just let that sink in, guys.
And Brad have been in.
So even if they have a great product, like other companies might have a better product, it does not really matter, because for that reason, what we're really seeing right now is most people, like the 90% of the projects, the 90% of the banks will go to XRP and through XRP's platform.
Let me know down below who has better meetings, right? I don't think anyone's gonna say anything. Justify implementation cost.
So yeah, XRP literally has zero competition at this point. It does have competition in terms of like great products out there, but in terms of partnerships, it is dominating. Like it is the number one out there.
Through measurable savings and deliver superior customer service. I mean, do we even need to talk about this, right? The separate slides outlines the high level of competition in cross-border payments through a network diagram. This includes both legacy providers and newer entrants. Ripple and Stellar are displayed alongside other companies and platforms such as PayPal, TransferWise, Western Union, RIA, MoneyGram, Zoom, Currency Fair, WorldRemit, Bitcoin, Payoneer, and Align Commerce. A vertical label on the slide reads correspondent banking disintermediation, suggesting that these competitors are part of a broader trend toward bypassing and streamlining traditional banking pathways. And so here is the image. This is an old image, but hey, nothing like taking something old and making it new, right? Ripple in the middle being a connector of all connectors. And then here's Ripple and Stellar's placement. Ripple and Stellar are positioned within the graphic as players offering faster and more direct alternatives for cross-border settlement. Their inclusion alongside both major remittance companies and digital payment providers indicates that the presentation views them as part of the competitive field that is already influencing the sector. However, their not yet assessment on full disruption shows that Swift considers the correspondent banking model still intact, and even as competition grows, even a high-level person that works for Swift has something on their.
So the biggest competition probably next up is like Swift, you know, all these payment transfers outside of crypto. Inside of crypto, I don't feel like there's any competition at all, in my opinion. Like, can you check like top 100 coins? Not even one of them is like Ripple. There is actually what we have, you know, Hedera, HBAR, all of these are working, but they're working not with banks. They are focused on working as a payment provider for example, for debit cards, you know, or for payment processing. So didn't HBAR have a huge partnership, or like Ondo? They all had a partnership other than banking, which banking is really hard to get into. It's hard to get those partnerships. You can't just come up to the bank and I guess like say, hey, can we build with you? No, it takes way more. You have to join their events, their conferences. And that's what, you know, Ripple employees and Ripple did over the past 5 years, 10 years. They were smart. They know what they were doing. And that's where really Ripple won in its sense, in my opinion. Like right now, yeah, there is a lot of money to make in payment processing, but it's way more competitive than working with banks. You know, we already have Swift, what it is, MasterCard, and all of these are already have payment processors, which probably make a ton of money themselves.
LinkedIn, I showed this in.
So it's gonna, you know, they partner up with PayPal. PayPal is another thing. Not Ripple, but Ripple literally went for the most under-tapped market, which is the banks. It's hard to get into, but they pay a lot, in my opinion, from what I understand the system.
The video a few days ago that's like 77% complete of like world transformation of correspondent banking. So I think we're getting close, just 23% away. And what will that look like in the future? And then anyways, if you want to read like the rest of this, please do. Laura Shin did have this interview. I thought this was interesting.
Ready for real world assets. Ethereum does have cool things. It does have cool projects, but it's going to do different stuff. You know, could break everything. I don't feel like that's going to happen. That's like saying, if the dollar gets, you know, overprinted, then we're gonna, you know, the dollar is gonna be worthless. This is very hard to happen, to have a compromised contract, in my opinion. But, you know, this is like saying if XRP could be minted more, that would be a problem. I'm not too sure, but just bear in mind that, you know, people were calling like for Bitcoin as well.
is currently at a place where they're not really willing to do things about significant exploits. And so I would ask the entire Ethereum community, let's assume a worst case scenario happens and Tether or Circle's private keys get compromised, and a hacker is now in control of the smart contract on Ethereum for USDC or USDT, including all of their freeze and seize capabilities. What do you do? Right? Like, what are you doing with your hands? What is your game plan at that point? Because it's going to break everything on that chain. And until we have significantly more mature risk management tooling around like the Ethereum product, it is not ready for prime time.
Interesting. It is not ready for prime time, right? They're not taking this seriously. Institutions are looking to Ethereum as the solution for the entire crypto market, right? Doesn't mean Ethereum's not going to go on to do stupid numbers, but still, you start to wonder what this gentleman's saying here. Are other banks and financial institutions looking at what he's saying and saying, hey, this is worrisome?
But, you know, then we have BlackRock working with Ethereum. So it's not like they're not doing good because they're literally working with BlackRock. They don't have to work with banks to make money. But it's just XRP is already working with banking, which is a huge advantage for XRP. It's just that Ethereum and XRP do different things. I don't really feel like it's that much comparable.
This is why you go to Ripple, right? Who's the custody of Ripple stablecoin RLUSD? BNY Mellon. Oh my God, it doesn't get bigger than that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We got a lot of money coming in.
I don't 100% agree with this. I feel like Ethereum is going to do its own things. That's why also institutions are buying Ethereum on the ETF. That's why they feel like it's undervalued right now, and they're calling for 6,000, 8,000 ETH. But I do also feel like that, XRP has its own
The United
potential.
States.
There is like a win-win case scenario. Crypto is still very undertapped in that